This is not a Corvette. This is not a Jaguar. And this is from 2010. In fact, these cars are from companies that have nothing to do with the original designs. Some may call them copycats, but others may call them unique coach building that pays homage to the retro styling of the bygone era. Regardless of where you stand, these are fascinating cars, with even more interesting stories behind them. And by the end of this video, you might be surprised by where you stand. Today, I present you 3 companies from 3 different parts of the world with different takes on retro styling, but unified in their burning passion for vintage cars. We're starting with Mitsuoka. In Toyama Prefecture, Japan is a humble 45-person-ish workshop, where craftsmen disassembled everyday lunchbox cars like the Nissan March, or Micra, and redress them into Jaguar Mark IIs. Well, they do it as best as they can. But their arguably more famous models, especially outside of Japan, are probably the Lesseidi and Orochi, both of which have starred in the most popular car shows in the world. It is very easy to look at them with mild disdain, but let me tell you about the people behind them before you make any judgments. Mitsuoka was founded in 1968 by Mr. Mitsuoka. Mr. Mitsuoka had worked at Nissan, then at a dealer until he decided he had enough of it, and founded his own company. As the company expanded to include a lucrative used car dealing business, his passion for cars grew. Mr. Mitsuoka was not satisfied with just trading cars. He wanted to make them. So he did. Meet Bubu 505-C. Styled suspiciously like the Jaguar SS100, it was the first of many unofficial replicas to come. But it was a remarkable achievement. It was a real car. But these were what they looked like, passion projects. In order to sell cars in Japan as a proper manufacturer, you need government approval. Cars needed to have a unique chassis that could endure a series of stringent tests the Japanese government threw at them. So this modest team of engineers and fabricators went to work on creating an all-original chassis in an effort to realize Mr. Mitsuoka's dreams. And in 1996, Mitsuoka passed the test with their 01. And no, this is not a photo of the Lotus Super 7, although the company admits its uncanny resemblance. But no matter, with the 01, Mitsuoka Motors was certified as the 10th vehicle manufacturer in Japan. Mr. Mitsuoka's dreams were realized. And then they had to back off. Making cars is expensive, especially if you decide to handcraft them one by one, like Mitsuoka. So they turned to buying completed cars, ripping the bodywork, and dressing them up with their own designs. And by their own designs, I mean them paying homage to classic designs. Like this Vute, not to be mistaken for a Jaguar Mark II, or the Galoo that looks like a Jag from the front, but a Cadillac from the rear, and the Yuga, which looks like the old London cab. One interesting exception was the Orochi. It was what they called a type car, meaning it had an original chassis like the 01. Not all parts of the cars were built in-house, however. The 6-cylinder engine was from Toyota, the brakes were from Honda, and airbags from Suzuki. Despite this, the look of the Orochi was unmistakably original. Surprisingly, it did pretty well, but with numerous variations with over 300 paint colors to choose from, the Orochis were too expensive to make. Since then, Mitsuoka returned to their roots of redressing existing cars. And this tradition continues today with models like the Rockstar, an unmistakable copy of the C2 Corvette but based on the Mazda Miata. The Buddy, a K5 Blazer copy based on the Toyota RAV4, and the Himiko that looks like a Morgan, but is also based on the Mazda Roadster. But whether you regard them as blatant copycats or an homage by a man dedicated to his love for old cars, you cannot deny the passion that has fueled this business for the past 70 years. Speaking of passions fueling businesses, meet Bufori. Bufori is a Malaysian car company founded by 3 Australian Lebanese brothers. Yes, The Khoury brothers managed a successful property development company in Australia, which inevitably lent themselves to accruing a large classic car collection. The youngest of the three brothers, Jerry Khoury, much like Mr. Mitsuoka, looked at the cars and went, "I want to make them." Styled after the classic 20s luxury cars like the Packards, the first Bufori Roadster was born. Except it wasn't called a Bufori yet. The story goes, according to their own website, that when the Khoury brothers asked their friends and relatives about their youngest brother's handmade car, the words that came out were beautiful, unique, fantastic, original, romantic, irresistible. Bufori. Yeah. When it comes to patting yourself on the back, they've definitely taken pole position. But the word irresistible is also used to describe the amount of money an anonymous buyer paid for the first Bufori. The Australians were into this. There was money to be made. In 1991, Bufori made their first export overseas with particularly high levels of interest in Malaysia. It apparently did so well that by 1998, they had incorporated it in Malaysia and set up a brand new factory. And since then, they've been handcrafting these luxury retro-styled hand-polished cars decked with 24-karat gold instruments and decorations in and outside of the car. Unlike Mitsuoka, Bufori builds the chassis, giving them greater freedom in shaping the overall design. And yet, somehow, like Mitsuoka, they seem to suffer from an identity crisis. It cannot confidently decide which decade it is living in. Still, there's something to be said about this single-minded obsession over classic luxury looks that's kinda charming. But when it comes to single-minded obsessions, you cannot leave out the following company. This is the 1958 C1 Corvette, and this is the Songsan Motors SS Dolphin. Spot the difference. And you know what? This is cool. And here's why. Songsan Motors is not actually a car company. I mean, yes, they create this magnificent body, but everything else that makes this a functioning car is outsourced to BYD. Songsan Motors is basically a group of car fanatics that are crazy, and I mean crazy, about American car culture. The group can be traced back to Beijing Motor Club, an enthusiast group that toured around tuning shows around China, with an obsession over American things. In one article, they supposedly held an American-themed tuning show where they had an American-style hot dog stands dressed in vintage American attire and playing music through American jukeboxes. And this was not a one-off thing. This was a decades-old obsession. And in 2019, after years of trading and tuning classic cars, they decided to put their passion and cash into their very first production car, the C1 Corvette. The SS Dolphin. More bulbous and boxier than the original, the SS Dolphin is not exactly stealing potential buyers of the C1 Corvette. But if you were wondering what the SS stands for, I invite you to take a look at the steering wheel, which, believe me, are a pair of dollar signs. I know it's hard to see it from this photo, but I swear on the production version, they are a pair of dollar signs on a backdrop of an American route sign. And you needed those dollars to afford one of these, because brand new, these came with a price tag of $97,000 US. On Bring a Trailer, it seems like you could get a pretty decent example of a real C1 Corvette for that kind of money. Now, granted, SS Dolphin is a brand new car of the 21st century with a hybrid powertrain generating 315 horsepower with all the creature comforts we've come to expect in a car today. But $97,000 for something that is in essence an unlicensed, mildly accurate replica of a real thing seems insane. I mean, who would buy such a car? Turns out, a whole bunch of people. And I kinda get it. You see, I see them as equivalent to theme park rides. You go to Universal Studios and you know you're not really in the real Hogwarts. But it doesn't matter, because what they offer is an experience that gets us close to how we imagine the real thing to be. And I think these cars offer something very similar. On the other side of the world, a lot of these European and American vintage cars are not only rare, they're unattainable. Outside of the silver screens and mobile phones, it is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to even witness them in real life. And what these cars offer is a tangible, real experience that gets pretty close to owning the real thing, at least from a purely aesthetic point of view. Purists might scoff at these pitiful attempts at replicating the real deal, but many others might simply enjoy them for what they are. Quirky, weird, and fun-filled cars built by people with passion that are just as real as the ones that went into making the real Jaguars and real Corvettes. I had a bit of a fun with this one. Not so serious content about not so serious cars. Well, except Bufori, maybe. I think ultimately the greatest charm of these cars come from the fact that they are built by people who genuinely love cars. These cars probably won't go down in history as timeless classics as the real vintage cars they attempt to emulate, but you never know. Because let us not forget that Jaguar, early in its history, like Mitsuoka, started out by creating fancy bodyworks that resembled much more expensive Bentleys at a fraction of the cost. And look at where they are now. Oh no.